back and have this conversation.
It was the turn of the civil society to table its proposals before the National Dialogue Committee. The Law Society of Kenya is proposing that the presidential election be held on a different day from elections for other positions. The lawyers' body also wants the audit of the IEBC and scrutiny of how resources have been used after every election.
You can find enough constitutional grounding to impute such audit mechanisms because they go towards transparency. What the Supreme Court does within 14 days is to determine the dispute.
The Election Observation Group (ELOG) has reiterated that the audit of every election should be conducted whether or not the election has been disputed.
These protocols need to be deposited in Parliament so that everybody is very clear exactly how do they make their decisions, even though the reference is the Constitution.
The Institute of Certified Public Accountants, ISPAC, in its proposals pointed out the need to scrap the law that dictates IEBC commissioners should have legal background and instead accommodate other professionals.
At least one of the commissioners to have the relevant experience in finance. I believe we had such a member in the last election. There were issues about particular ratios that would have been sorted promptly.
The Center for Multi-Party Democracy wants the duties and roles of IEBC commissioners to be stipulated in order for every commissioner to be held accountable and all constituencies and counties to be protected in the boundary delimitation exercise. However, with the wide scope of critical issues presented, the question of the country going for a referendum to amend the constitution is the elephant in the dialogue room.
Did I hear you talking about changing our system to a parliamentary system? And is that possible without a referendum?
There are places where the shoe is too tight. There are places where we need to look at. But I beg you, I beseech you, we cannot go to a referendum in these divisions. It will make an already bad situation much worse.
On the implementation of the 2/3 gender rule, while many groups agree, the framework varies, with the Elections Observers Group recommending an additional number of women MPs in Parliament. Melita Oletenges, NTV.
All right, that report by Melita Oletenges, of course, setting just the base of our conversation. If you can have a look at what the Standard is reporting as well. Ruto Raila road to referendum. The end game, it says, as the national talks gain momentum, all indications are that many of the reform proposals touch on constitutional clauses that require a national referendum. So what is the cost of taking the country to another plebiscite, and how is it likely to affect the political fortunes of President Ruto and Azimio leader Raila Odinga? So that's captured on page 2 and 3 of the Standard newspaper as well. And of course, looking at that, the civil society raising concerns on the tax burden and rejecting any kind of push towards a referendum in the country. Abdullah, looking at some of those proposals, of course, staggered elections. I think that was a proposal from the Law Society of Kenya. You have a extension of a presidential term from 5 years to 7 years. You have the creation of new counties, creation of the office of leader of the opposition. Some of these things, then, are they likely going to push us in case these proposals are adopted and are pushed towards towards being implemented? Then does it push us there?
Well, I think first of all, to me, 1 year after election and already having a dialogue committee or whatever they call it, to me that is nonsense. And I'll tell you why. This country has, there are people who are in this country, they die looking for food. 60 years after independence, there are people who cannot feed themselves. Why? Those in power, those they elected, those they voted for, those they gave the resources to manage prudently so that life is going to be very easy for people, are the ones plundering it. When I've said 20 billion on traveling, foreign domestic, I said yesterday, if you invest 20 million in northern Kenya, we are going to produce wheat, sorghum, maize, and all the cereals that is going to feed East Africa. Forget about Kenya. But now we're going to beg Ukraine that are in war. This government priority is upside down. This government forgot that the same people who are telling us the police are harassing us, police are back killing Kenyans. Police are back collecting bribes. Police are back snatching Kenyans. You've heard what's happening in northern Kenya as a part of this. There is still extrajudicial killing. You must change the name. I want Kenyans to be so angry this morning. And I don't want to speak to the government. I want to speak to Kenyans. We are the ones who pay the taxes. Article 1, Article 2, Article 3 gives us the power to protect, uphold, and defend this constitution. The sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya because they are the ones who pay the money. From Kakamega to Mandera, from Namanga to Moyale, can we, at least for one time in this country, say we don't want to be Kikuyus anymore? My friend maybe comes from Central, or someone comes from Central, yes. Central Kenya has produced 3 presidents. Did that resolve the issue of alcohol and jiggers for the last 60 years? It didn't. Did that resolve? A ward in Muranga has more than 10 billionaires, and another ward has people who cannot get water. So we have part of Nyanza that are categorized as ASAL regions. The problem of this country is the resources. If you look at Article 101 that talks about debt can only be borrowed for only development. All the money that was borrowed, which development they do? Where are they? We could have seen them. Where is this money? Where did Eurobond go? Where did NOSA 1 and 2 go? Please, Kenyans, you are either going, and I said in this forum, my son is going to talk about 30 years to come, what his father spoke about. That is a shame in a country where people call themselves learned.
So let me ask you, don't you think then perhaps what is happening now with looking at some of the issues that we're facing as a country, that then we need to sort of change some of those things, some of the things in the Constitution to be able to provide a more better place for us to thrive in our democracy?
No, we are already very democratic country. Kenya is a constitutional democracy. And the people who designed the Constitution, if you look at the composition, they came from all the regions of this country. A majority were from the marginalized communities. That's why it's very difficult for the elites from the session paper 1960 region coming. It's very difficult for them to fathom this Constitution. It is the 2010 Constitution is giving headache to the executive, parliament, and judiciary. They can no longer do what they used to do. They can't. Because for you to interfere with the basic structure of the Kenyan Constitution, there are certain things you must do. You must go to the people. The people have already paid taxes. I said, we are the only country where taxes are paid as socialist, but the government is acting capitalist. If 85%, the law says that at least 30% should go to development. In the national budget, from the control of budget, it's only they spend 15% on development. In the counties, they are around 22, 21. This is what needs to happen. The president needs to stop going to an ICT conference. He can send Owalo. Or is it because Owalo is a Jaluo and he cannot represent his interests? Why should a president go to an ICT conference? He has a cabinet minister. Why should a president deal with president? Yes. But you're running around with counter suits. You're in New York for 10 days. You come back. You still have 22 million Kenyans who are struggling with food.
So
listen.
So what do you expect?
What I said is
no,
this.
And Abdullah, I'm asking you, what do you expect the president to be able to do?
The president should sit down.
He has an agenda, a development for the country. Is he not supposed to follow up
This country does not need the president agenda. We have a constitution. If it's about managing finances, we have the Public Finance Management Act. If it's about managing the resources, we have Treasury. If it's about economical indicators and planning, we have the ministry expert to do that. The president needs to talk to Kenyans and say, what are we supposed to do? Right now, is Unga down?
So instead of talking, he's actually trying to do something about
He's not doing anything. He's just doing business with Kenyans and the world. Because if you are doing something, fuel must go down. If you are doing something, Unga must go down. Okay. If you are doing something, the production of food. Why are we always giving relief food to Kenyans? I told you, when I went to Mandera for the last 6 months, I wanted to prove to my own parents and people that if this is what we can do at individual level, and then the government can also invest in agriculture, then we can feed ourselves. As long as even the medieval governments, agrarian, Even David was, even in the Bible, he was told work hard so that he feeds himself. If you cannot feed your own people, crime has gone up from COVID. If you look at the National Police Service reports, crime has gone up in most counties. Those counties are not in northern Kenya.
So are you saying that that we're failing as a country? Is that what we're saying?
What we're saying as a country is the people we elected to offices to serve us are doing business with us. Instead of managing our resources, they are being paid 50,000, 40,000 for allowance when a child in Pokot or in Mandera cannot take Uji this morning in school because the national government did not release the capitation for primary secondary schools.
All right. Arnold, so wow. I mean, Abdullah has thrown us that ball, and I mean, so he's talking about bad governance. Why? It is the electorate who put the leaders there. But you're saying that we're in a completely desolate situation. I don't know if you agree with that.
Well, I wouldn't say we are entirely in a desolate situation as a country. There is, of course, good things that are happening, and then there are bad things. Where we were as a country 50 years ago is not where we are today. Our situations and our fortunes have actually changed largely. So I wouldn't put it that bad. But I also need to say this, that Abdullah is actually right to the extent that there is a group of the political class that thinks that Kenyans eat and live politics. Ahead of the 1789 French Revolution, it's quoted that the Queen, King Louis XVI's wife, Maria Antoinette, said when she saw people protesting in the streets, that why are they protesting? And she was told they are protesting because the cost of bread is so high they can't afford the bread. And she said, why can't they eat cake? A lot of times when Kenyans ask, we want solutions, they are asked, why can't you eat national dialogue? We want our children to go to school, just allow us to dialogue. We want cheap food, just allow us to dialogue. We want fertilizer on the field, allow us to have dialogue. Of course, Abdullah is also right when he says that we have got a pillar on how we want to go forward as a nation, and that's the Constitution 2010. We even have got a Vision 2030, and of course, we've not been very good on MTPs. Nowadays, we even don't know who is the CEO of Vision 2030. In the days of old, you will know of Mugo Kibati. Nowadays, if you ask anybody randomly who the CEO is, you probably don't know. But there is that Vision 2030 secretariat. They even have got a board and everything else around that. We don't hear so much of that. So initially, we had the medium-term plans quite pronounced. After 2013, of course, a little bit of that was lost along the way. So we cannot, of course, leave the development of a nation to short-time proposals. So Kenyans cannot eat politics every day. Kenyans are not going to eat national dialogue. Kenyans are not going to eat term limits. Kenyans are not going to eat political positions. Kenyans want work.
And so exactly what, we're just going back quickly on what Abdullah had said, right?
Yes.
On the issue of the president, then if the president is part of the political elite together with the other opposition leaders as well, do they understand the plight of Kenyans when you talk about fuel prices are high, that the taxes are quite high, Kenyans overburdened, inflation is high? Are they working towards ensuring that things change?
I think if you look at the plan, the Kenya Kwanza administration has got quite an elaborate plan. They even call it the plan. Working very well, but then they are not working in a void. We also have got the political realities that we have today, both local and international. At the local level, we have got this push for open up the servers. We are going back to the streets. We don't recognize you. You have got a threat to handshake and everything else. So that is there. You wouldn't say that then they also didn't know they would have that particular problem. But they have got a plan. They are doing a number of things to that. I think 2 weeks ago we were talking about what the administration has done, and that was listed elaborately. Then there is what is happening at the international level. So it will really depend for you to look at it differently. If you look at what they have done, there is a list to how that is actually being worked out. Also, I saw Abdullah say that the president has no business going to some of these conferences. You see, ministers are the president's helpers and advisors. Where he can do it on his own, you cannot begrudge him of that. Where he leads and chooses to actually become the tip of the spear in a certain campaign, That is his business. All of us know that CSS work at the president's pleasure. They are his advisors. They are people he picks out to work out on those other issues. Then the president cannot be one man sitting in State House and solving all of our problems. He has also appointed those CSS and PSS, and there is a whole government bureaucracy to ensure that work is done. The whole idea, by the way, why leaders are given bodyguards, for example, is that in the days of old, leaders would argue, I cannot take care of your issues as a leader because I am looking out for my own security and my own issues. So then, the wisdom of the ancient people was that we will take care of your personal issues as an individual, so long as you take care of our collective problems. Mm-hmm. So we have got a whole bureaucracy that is working around that. Mm-hmm. The government is actually doing quite well. You will actually see county governments that, apart from the noises that you see with the county assemblies here and there, where governors have decided probably that they will make it so difficult for county assemblies, or county assemblies have decided that they are not getting enough. By and large, the bureaucracy is working. It might not be working as effective as we want, but it's working. What we should not sit here and do is to sell hopelessness. Whereas hope is not a strategy, it's still a currency in the affairs of men, and you cannot preach to people hopelessness and tell them that all is lost, and really expect that that is how we then should be offering thought leadership in the morning, giving people motivation at such like an hour. So things are happening. We've got room to review and to change up and around. But the political class must remember one thing, that we cannot be repeating Maria Antoinette's words every single day. Let them eat cake. Let them eat cake. Off the camera, we were just talking about, we've been having a lot of noise about the price of unga. As it goes down, from where I sit, I know that the price of unga is actually going to go high. Because worldwide, there is a shortage of rice. The prices of rice have gone up, the highest it has ever been in 15 years. Half of Africa feeds on rice. Every time the people who eat rice, and normally where I come from, we will say that is the middle class. If they are not able to eat rice, they will go back to ugali. Once they go back to ugali, then it means the price will also go up. So we have got problems. You've just come from COVID, then you have got the issues in the north. Russia is doing whatever they are doing. We have got almost a global recession to some level. The dollar, even in the US, is actually playing games. It's not something we can control on this particular end. We have got elections. We have had mandamano in the streets. You have got El Nino now on your doorsteps. In the West already, and like I said last week, the epicenter of El Nino is going to be central Somalia, western Somalia, and northeastern Kenya, and the coastal strip. That is where it's going to rain heaviest. Mm-hmm. Then you have got the rice shortage. So you actually... But
with all these things, I mean, Arnold, yesterday we read about the amount of taxes that salaried workers in this country are being charged, or are being, the taxes that are being deduced from their own, earnings, has surpassed the 2/3 threshold. Can you imagine that? And this is not even including the national health, the social health insurance fund that is already in Parliament under debate. And I mean, do you think then the government, really, the people who elected, understand, as to go back to that, understand the plight of Kenyans when you're talking about, yes, all these factors included, all these external factors, in place? Are we going to create a place for Kenyans to be able to at least be able to thrive?
This is a simple question. My payslip, the deductions on my payslip first went past the 2/3 4 years ago. I have those payslips, so I know. There's a level of a salary you get, and so many people are hearing this. It looks like it's news here, but I can tell you a lot of Kenyans, there's a threshold of a salary you get, and it immediately goes past that. Those of us who actually now do consulting will actually tell you that by the time you get around that, you realize that it's taxed as a secondary income. So this news and the way we actually do headlines, sometimes actually, there are people who are looking at it and they're like, okay, so there are people who it wasn't at that level already. When I saw that headline yesterday, I was like, okay, so there were people in this country who were not giving away a third of their income. But be that as it may, let us not rain on the parade of the people who actually are talking about this. These issues are real, but we also need to face both the opportunities that we meet as a nation and the challenges that we have. We have got the challenge, like for example, of the national debt. Why are we not talking about that for out of every 10 shillings we collect, 8 shillings and 40 cents are going to service debt?
All right.
It's true in the last, and you know, that is treasury data. I'm just telling you, that is treasury data. When you say that's not true, when treasury has actually gazetted those figures, do you have others? Are you a better source of data other than treasury?
All right, let's hear from Fanya Mambo.
I think I want to speak from where he left on two things. Number one, that treasury data is conflicting in itself, because the same treasury told us that they have given 22% of what they collected to counties. So 100% minus 22%, you're left with 78%. So the same treasury wakes up and tells us that they have used 84% of what they collected to pay debt. So they need to wake up and tell us which part of treasury is not using their minds right. Because you cannot have treasury telling us that for the first time, we are happy to report that out of what we collected, we have given 22% to counties. Then they wake up and say, out of what we collected, we've given 84% to paying debt. Now tell me, and then the same treasury says they have paid salary of civil servants, because we've not seen civil servants walking around here saying they've not been paid.
But we're in a cycle where we're borrowing to pay.
Yes, but this is what I was coming to. So they need to be clear in what they are saying. But I don't speak for treasury. I am happy that the headlines you're talking about, I was at the center of it. We are part of a lobby group that next week is moving to court, and I'm the main petitioner. And we want a constitutional petition filed, and we shall file, and we are heading for that. And we have made it known that sets the limit as to how much government can take from your salaries. Because we've gotten to a point in this country where the government feel as if they're entitled to our salaries. They wake up and decide that they can raid on your salary to the point that it is unlimited. The raid is uncontrolled. So we are saying, as part of the talks in Bomas, because I'm sure a constitutional referendum will come out of it, we want Kenya to set a threshold and say, in direct taxation, the government cannot take more than 20% of what you earn. That has to be made very clear. Then because, you know, even after, like right now, some of those people who are losing up to 35% of their earnings, the government is not done with them. The minute it's done with taxing their income, they come for the fuel, they come for the cup of tea, they come for unga, mchele, everything. By the time government is done with you, 60% of what you've earned has gone to taxes. Because even if you buy a shoe polish, it is taxed. So first they take in excess of 35% of what you earn, and then they are not done with you. Everything you consume, even a chewing gum, they tax it. So we find that you're working and 60 to 65% of what you're earning is going to government, and you're not seeing the return on what you're investing into that government. So yes, there's a constitutional petition, and yes, I am moving to court, and yes, it was in the news yesterday, and it will continue being a news item, that for the first time we have to set a constitutional threshold, not a bill of parliament, a constitutional threshold on how much money, in terms of percentages, the government can take from citizens. Secondly, the second thing that is coming out of Bomas, and it should be my last submission on this particular moment, is, you know, Kenyans are listening to, they pick up important things. And one of the things they've picked up is this Senator Gerald something, Gerald that one, Gerald that difficult name.
No, you mean Nandi Senator something Gerald Gay?
Is he the one, that one? The Kenyans have picked up someone telling us that Kenya Kwanza has done so well. They've ended corruption. We have electric bikes. Gas is the 300 shillings for the Meko. They have fixed all the roads. They have fixed the steamer. The dollar is now exchanging at a very good rate, I think 65. We have fuel. Fuel is very cheap since the history of this country. Kenya Kwanza has done so well, so meticulously well. At a potholes in Maisha, Kenya, and all the children are going to school and we are feeding everybody. The only thing remaining is to extend the term of the presidency because it's done extremely well. I think we need to wake up and to realize that first, as a nation, this administration has not even started working. If your gas munatuambia 300 looking at us, and then you come and tell us ni mtungi, we were promised electric bikes. How many of them are on the road? We have been promised so many things by this administration. They said the dollar will come down. It went up. They said they will not borrow. They borrowed twice as much. Everything they said they will not do, they have done. Even the Shakahola massacre has not been resolved. And now they have realized that the only thing that is remaining that is so important is to increase the presidential term limit to 7 years. I keep telling Kenyans.
Did you get the reasoning behind why Senator Cherargei had proposed that particular,
You see, let me tell you, Kenyans don't care about his reasoning. All they know is that they voted in for the 2010 constitution, and they were keenly aware of what they were voting for. And the people of Nandi, if you ask them, they did not send Cherargei there to go and increase the presidential term limit. The people of Nandi the other day, if you saw his nemesis on the ground, and he was Keter, and he was talking to the people and he was asking them, is there a petrol station for the people of Nandi that is separate from other Azimio people? And they said no. So the truth is, there is a lot of people suffering, including where Cherargei is coming from. And instead of him speaking about the agenda of his people, he's telling us about increasing presidential term limits. That's a person who is not in touch with the reality of what Kenyans want.
But it does fall under his own
for this administration,
right. It does fall under a democratic right he enjoys to make any proposals,
You see, the fact that we do have a democratic right to make proposals does not mean that we have a democratic right to make very unwise proposals that are not palatable in the ears of Kenyans. What he has done is he has earned himself a permanent spot in the enmity of Kenyans' hearts, and people do not even want to hear his name. That's why I was actually refusing to pronounce his name in full. It's Gerald somebody. The truth is that Kenyans do not want to hear that kind of things. Kenyans do not want to have that kind of conversation. And Kenyans are not going to entertain it. And actually, the only advantage I can say, and I wish it goes, because the only advantage it would give us is that it would help us to shoot down that constitutional petition very quickly if it was to come to a referendum. Because if it is included in the referendum bill and Kenyans see 7 years, the first thing they will give is a no.
Okay. Before we take a quick break, yes. But very quickly, Arnold,
allow me just to return to the numbers. You know, there is a lot of data witchcraft that goes on the screens. And a lot of times, I know data journalism is quite a nascent division of journalism. But I'll tell you this. All of us know, and you can actually confirm from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, that slightly over 90% of Kenyans earn 100,000 and below. That is out there. There is no one who is earning 100,000 shillings as the gross salary who will pay a third of their taxes. However much you calculate, however much you get creative, the maximum anyone getting 100,000 and below can actually pay is 26% of that particular salary. So I know when people of authority, like the private sector come out and then declare these numbers, I know the media is actually obliged to carry the numbers and move forward with that. But I have seen KNBS say that only 97% of Kenyans earn 100,000 shillings. As in, a majority of Kenyans earn between that is 97%. That is KNBS data.
I will now to confirm that. So you give me some time to go back.
Let me just take you back. I just wanted to say that particular headline was premised on. I know why.
No, for example, like I said, concerns that were raised by the Federation.
Yes, that's what I'm actually saying. That's what I'm actually telling you, that a majority of the people who earn salaries in this country don't earn more than 100,000 shillings. We are talking about over 90% of them. And I can tell you, however creative you get with your calculation, all the deductions cannot go beyond 26% for anyone getting 100,000 shillings and below. So, of course, when you torture data, like they have said in the past, if you torture data very well, it will confess to whatever you want. I know the 3%ers who all of them are paying a third of it. They're the ones feeling the most pain and talking about their third. I need to talk about that. As of Cherargei,
we have to take a break. Allow me to, honestly, I need you to hold on to that thought because we have to take a break.
You allow me to come back
yes,
first
when we come back, yes, and I know also Abdullah has something to say about that, but yes, that conversation by the Nandi senators suddenly kicked off quite a storm in the country. Would love to hear your thoughts on that, but yeah, let's take that short break. The hashtag as always, MLiveNTV. We're going to be back in a short while.
you're finally released from pain. That moment when you start to get back to ordinary, and ordinary feels amazing. Whatever pain you're going through, release starts here.
Sasa unaweza furahia videos bila wasiwasi. Buy any Safaricom weekly bundle and get 500 MB of YouTube free to enjoy videos made for you. Furahia michezo utakavyo. Jielimishe, ujiinue kimaisha. Ingia Zone na YouTube. Get free 500 MB of YouTube when you buy any Safaricom weekly bundle. Just dial *544# au tembelea my Safaricom app today.
Hello and welcome to Kikao, your weekly authoritative program on Africa's agriculture.
For many years, humans have used traditional breeding methods such as selective breeding and crossbreeding to get desirable traits in plants and animals.
You are able to move genes from one organism to another through crossing. So what breeders have always done is to cross one parent with another in the hope that the offspring will carry the good character from here and the good character from here.
This week we focus on a subject that evokes fear in some people, but in others, opportunities. We are talking about genetically modified organisms or products better known as GMOs.
Nastya has arrived and... Leave Nastya out
Camille,
of this.
please calm down. It's not Max's fault, I swear.
Well, whose then? Whose fault is it? Masha.
A certain chemical cause that was found in the heart that causes cardiac problems in the animals.
Strelitsky and your Vasil have found the trail to Lera. Hide it wherever you want, right away. I will deal with it.
You do your best out there, let us do our best in here with the disinfecting power of Jake. Because Jake cleans and kills 99.9% of illness-causing germs and COVID-19 in your home.
What's your relationship with pain? What's your relationship with change? What is your relationship with finances? Do you get knocked out or do you go with the punches?
Kitovu cha vizazi ni baba mzazi. Unafaa kuzingatia nini kabla hujalitia guu lako ndani?
Join us for the third edition of Man Cave.
Tuchambue, tutadavue nyama na mdahalo wake. Maswala ya wanaume peupe.
And this time we have an amazing after party session from 7 p.m. till midnight, and we'll have great music, great food, and also fireside chats. And for you guys who want to spend the night over, well, definitely we have the plan for you.
Tarehe 28 mwezi wa Oktoba mwaka 2023. Ungana nasi hapa Olol Tepes Picnic Site kwa sherehe bab kubwa.
When men meet, change happens.
Following the gazettement of Two Rivers as a private, services-focused special economic zone, the first one of the kind in Kenya, there is no better time to own a home at Two Rivers than now. Text the word Cascadia to 22365.
All right, welcome back to the program. You're watching AM Live as we wind up on the conversation, checking the political pulse in the country, and of course looking at some of those issues that have been making headlines over the past couple of days. And Arnold, very quickly, you to get an opportunity to speak on this proposal by the Nandi senator on the presidential term limit.
I just needed to say this, that Cherargei has got his constitutional right to say whatever he wants to say. Even though he doesn't have he is no longer any other person. You remember when Honorable Ayub, the MP for Fafi, last year in November, proposed lifting the presidential term limit so that a president can run as many times as he wants. You remember the kind of hit that brought. Because we are still fresh. We've really not forgotten the 24 years under Moi. And that the way actually that really took us as a country. At that particular time, the UDA party came out clearly and stated that Ayub has got his right as an individual to say anything. Like all of us say anything we want. But then he's not speaking for the party. The party has got a spokesperson. The party has got a communication way and channel of how they do that. The only advantage those particular people do not have is that because they are associated to this particular party, it becomes so difficult, especially for the detractors of UDA and Kenya Kwanza, to actually struggle and help the PR for that particular end. So Cherargei is speaking this in his own right as an individual and as an elected member. Unfortunately, again for media, and I'll always come back to this, you know, they were so loud on his proposal, but when UDA did a statement, clearly, it was actually treated as a footnote. It
But
was
why? I mean, Arnold, I believe that's,
if you
that's
listen to
fair. And I
Fanyamambo-
find you being unfair sometimes, because when you look at even how we covered that particular statement yesterday, it captured a whole newspaper page.
I'm
right?
just saying,
dismissing
I'm
and
just saying
distancing itself
that
from
there
that
are very
statement.
many ways of monitoring media. Of course, you did that particular bit. If you find me unfair sometimes to the media, it is the same way we people sometimes find the media unfair. So it's two-way.
All right.
But be that as it is, let me say this about Cherargei. Samson Cherargei is a man who loves to quote controversy and attention. In the intelligence world, there's something we call an asset. Cherargei is actually an asset to the detractors of Kenya Kwanza and William Ruto. All of us know that Cherargei is not in the inner circle of the president. All of us know that Cherargei is not even
I don't
a
think
policy
everybody
wonk.
knows that, Arnold.
Everybody knows that. They'll tell you that. Every day you read newspapers about how he's struggling to shake hands, how he's struggling to get closer into the president's circle. All of that is out there. So like I was saying, he's not in the inner circle. He's not a policy wonk of that part of UDA or even the establishment. But what he serves, because first of all, he comes from Rift Valley, and secondly, he is on UDA. Every time he speaks, he then gives detractors like Fanyamambo the platitude and the ammunition to really deal with Kenya Kwanza. Cherargei should also stop and do introspection. You know, from where we sit, somehow that the people of Nandi sent Cherargei to the Senate, and Cherargei has done everything the people of Nandi sent him to the Senate to do, and now the only thing that is left is the presidential term limits. Definitely no. We are not yet feeding our people the way we want. Our children are not in school properly. Devolution is not working optimally. We are trying and striving to get to the public, to the perfect republic.
So essentially, you agree with what Fanyamambo says.
He knows.
So then, but then I can actually distinguish from Cherargei, the troublemaker, and the Kenya Kwanza government. I at least can actually put the difference between. For him, he knows that, but then he chooses to conflate and then ensure that Cherargei is William Ruto and Cherargei is UDA. They are not one and the same.
All right.
Cherargei is an individual, and he should also sit down and realize the only part of this that I actually support, by the way, one of the reasons why I would support this particular proposal to end up in that referendum bill is one thing, is that it will help us as a people to reject this particular process of every day being fed referendums and dialogues.
All right.
Kenya Kwanza government cracks have already begun. Khalwale told us that he needs the president to sack Moses Kuria and David Ndii. And then Osoro told us the government is not a shareholding company after a year. Now, Cherargei is a Kenyan, I think he's a High Court advocate, so as a Kenyan citizen, he has all the right to propose whatever he wants. Kenya is a very free country, you know, going under a very robust, what they call progressive constitution in the legal fraternity. That said, there is a reason why people always thought of having term limits, whether it's 4 years in the United States or 5 years in Kenya. 35 countries in Africa have term limits. The few who don't are countries like Guinea, Togo, Tunisia, Gabon, Cameroon, Niger, Uganda, Djibouti. These are countries you can't compare with Kenya. These are low level in terms of wealth or education or infrastructure or whatever you're doing. Kenya is relatively among the top 5 or 6 in most of the areas of social sphere. Cherengei's utterances is indication or just how rotten our political class is, that they can't just dump everything they think should do. As a senator, his first role is to defend devolution. The president has told us that he has released all the funds, yet we are hearing there is some funds that's still not been released. Ministry of Education is complaining about debt in the national government, capitation have not reached. So I think he should be very busy in the Senate and represent his people of Nandi than telling us about term limits. Kenya is a constitutional democracy with 2 term limits every 5 years. We're just 1 year of the presidency of William Ruto. He has found himself in the hot seat where Uhuru was. It was very easy for him to tell us whatever he wanted to tell us. Now, no one is going to listen to every crap that comes from Kenyan government. Or Kenya Kwanza, no. You wanted a job, we gave you the job. You lied to us. There was a lot of propaganda during the elections. You sponsored a lot of music in all the dialects, whether it is the guy from Kisii or Rift Valley or Central Kenya. Now, my friends in Central will talk to us about Kumira Kumira. This country does not need a president. And I want to tell you that why we have cabinet ministers, why we have permanent secretaries, why we have state officers. If President William Ruto wants to run the show alone, it's going to affect his health. He's a human being. He's not a supermade God human being. I mean, from even in the last 1 year, you can see the stress that he's undergoing from his physique, his head, his eyes, his body. So, but you're not a medical. I am not. I don't need to be a medical person. I don't need to. I'm a human being, and I know if you are not sleeping 8 hours in the 24 hours and you're not resting, this body is meant to do certain things at certain time. During the day, we need to work. During the night, at least we need to sleep between 6 to 8 hours. Now, let me finish. Let me finish. Okay. If you travel by plane from Nairobi to New York, I've traveled from here to Holland. It's 8 hours. To that, New York takes about 19 hours. So when you're on a plane for 18 hours, seated all that time, regardless of how much you pretend you're very strong, he's almost going to his 60, so he's 50-something. He has left the age, as a Muslim, as we are told that a man is at his peak at his 40s, whether in terms of strength, in terms of thinking, in terms of age. The first 20 years of any man, he grows, whether he grows through the muscle or through the brain. The second 40, he builds, whether he destroys, marries. The third, he gives advices. He is in that bracket. So if he says he's going to run this country like UDA, he's going to be very tired. He's going to miss a lot of points. Sometimes one of the best managers are people who delegate certain duties. Be firm, monitor. There is a department for monitoring and evaluation. There is a department for communication. There is a department on economic recovery. Sometimes it's good to consume data and allow other people to work. But when the president is all over, then you cannot run a country like that.
But let me ask you, Abdullah, if you didn't see the president working, the next question will be, where is the president? Why is he not working?
Kibaki was never talking to us like he did. I mean, every president who has performed better than every other president who is mentioned in this country is Mwai Kibaki. Ruto and Uhuru were young when they were elected. They did talk too much. When they did that, they put us into a lot of debt because they were borrowing money for development. Yes, and the article says, the constitution says you can only borrow for development. Where is the development? You've borrowed billions of money, trillions of money. Now you're telling us you still, they were accusing Jubilee government, which he was the deputy president, of borrowing a lot of money. What are they doing now? Because the reality of telling propaganda to the citizens and the reality of running the mechanism of economics are two different sets of principles. Now, we are raising about 2-point-something trillion, and then we are borrowing 1-point-something. The debt is about 1.7. Now, if you're borrowing like 250-something a day in June on 21st, let me tell you, just share data. Let me not waste my time on that. In 2021, June, all right, Kenya Poverty Index report says that every one Kenyan in 17 lives in abject poverty with a population of about 2.9 million. These 2.9 million are classified as living in hardcore extreme poverty in this country. Now, When you talk of that now, you need to sit down. Even as a father sometimes, when you come home, you don't shout. Your presence alone makes things just work. If you're a father who is always coming home shouting, the daughters will go to their rooms, the son will go to the TV, the mother will go to the kitchen, and you'll be sitting in an empty sitting room.
All right. Arnold, wow, so that's quite something.
It is me.
Yes, oh,
yeah,
you
it's me.
I apologize.
Give us our time.
Yes.
No, because he had raised his hand, I think.
No,
but
he's just, you see,
yes.
I am happy with where we are as a country. And the reason I am happy is because, to start with, we've done very well in our police force. You see, the other time they were looking for 350 recruits. 7,000 people appeared and we employed all of them. So now our police to people ratio has become excess. And that's why Kenya is planning to take 1,000 policemen to Haiti to go and keep peace there. Because we have streamlined our police force, we have given them the best uniform, they have enough weapons, the training is good, how they handle the public is very good, they do not beat people up anyhowly, they do not shoot to kill. In fact, we've had them tell us that, I don't even want to mention what they told us about the people who died during Maandamano, but all I'm trying to say, that Kenya has gotten itself to such a beautiful place. The police are so trained, so well equipped, so well geared. Our population to police ratio has surpassed the UN standards that have been set. And so we have so many policemen. The security is so good in Kenya. You can speak to your phone at midnight. You can walk on any street. Nobody will snatch your phone. We have done so well in policing that even our police stations are full of IT equipment. Now the only thing remaining to do with our police force is to take 1,000 of them to Haiti to go and keep peace there and maintain law and order, because we are the best that the region has had, and when the world looked, they found that this is the best place to source police from to go and keep peace in Haiti. I think that's the government you're looking at. A government that thinks and believes that the people of Kenya are so secure, they are so happy with their police, there is no extra police, there is no extrajudicial killing. The only problem we have is that we have excess policemen as a country, and we need to send these excess policemen to Haiti to go and keep peace there. This government is not in touch with the needs of its people. It's not in touch with the challenges of its people. And the only thing here is the incentive that is coming from it, because they are saying that they want to give 14 billion for this process. If you take 14 billion, you divide by 1,000 policemen, it means that ideally there's a cost of about 14 million shillings to each policeman for that period. But do you think that any of these policemen, if they were to take a plane and go to Haiti, would get anything close to 1 million, leave alone the 14 million? So I think we need to get to that space where we start saying what is important for Kenya and what is important for Kenyans. What are Kenyans going through? Let us not be insensitive. Let us not even get ourselves to a place where we can have a conversation around such things, because it is very emotive. Mtu akikumbuka ati kwake ameibiwa jana usiku ama they've lost a phone. If you look at the number of reportings of crimes at Central Police here every single day, and you are talking of even entertaining the idea of taking your policemen to another country without employing more, I think there's a huge and fundamental problem.
Doesn't Kenya have also obligations in terms of enhancing its diplomatic ties as well? So this would perhaps be one of those areas in which
Zainab, how do you give what you don't have? How do you give what you don't have? You saw the way they handled Maandamano. Is that the police force you want to go and give out there to go and handle other people? We are at up. You saw, you know, you're talking to Kenyans right now who know about crime rate in this country. The muggings, the stealings, and so on and so forth. And you are telling them that we have looked and found that the best thing you do is to have before you have an international obligation, you have a local obligation with your people. And the mandate that the people of Kenya gave you as a government, first was to protect to protect life, number one, and number two, to protect private property. When you start protecting international property and international lives, before you can protect the lives of your own people and the property of your own people, then there's a problem.
All right. Yes, Arnold.
Let me just start from the Haiti question. But then I need to begin from this particular point. Is that every time Fanyamamba opens up his mouth to speak, for him, talking about Kenya Kwanza, he's almost like a person in a crime of passion. For him, everything this government and this administration does and touches is bad. Everything that the previous administration did was gold. I also have to actually be open and say that once upon a time, myself and him were supporters of the previous administration. But I would really want to urge him to actually move on and also look at things objectively sometimes. On Haiti, I need to say this. Dear Kenyans, Haiti is the firstborn of the African nationalism, African republicanism, if that is a word, but then it is the first black country that got independence. Two, we do not live in a vacuum. And if history serves us well, it's important to realize that countries that were much poorer than us then, like Tanzania, supported liberation movements in Africa. One of the reasons why South Africa, for example, and Tanzania have got a very good relationship is that their fighters were, Mwalimu Nyerere offered, when Mzee Jomo Kenyatta was thinking the way Fanyamambo is thinking here, that somehow Kenya exists in a bubble, and we therefore should not be going out of our way to sacrifice. The problem is that
he's asking if, why don't you solve the local issues?
Those we are now conflating. Let's just look at issues as they are. First of all, I am giving you a lesson in history. That Kenya was so selfish during the struggle of liberation of Africa. That is why at the international level, people do not respect Kenya so much, especially when our history comes up. It's true, we are respected, we fought for independence. But we are a country then that helped the colonialists arrest people who came to hide in Nairobi at that particular time. This particular selfish way of thinking has initially made it so difficult for Kenyan businesses to thrive in other spaces. We are correcting the messes that were done in the days of old, where when Zambians were fighting for war, they would go to Uganda. Even here in Uganda, they went south to train. But somehow Kenya was here.
Okay.
Kenya, for example, I know we
and
don't.
I want you to
I know we don't want to talk about this.
Almost out of time.
We will talk about the Haiti. Well, I'll go to that. But I needed to actually just point out that Kenya does not have very good credentials in international solidarity. We've not done so well. Of course, the Haiti, we went to Somalia because they were attacking us. Before that, we had barricaded ourselves into a small thing we called an island of peace.
Al-Shabaab was attacking Kenya, not Somalis.
We are in Somalia dealing with Al-Shabaab. We are not fighting Somalia. We are brothers of Somalia, and Somalis are our brothers. We are working together. So in the Haiti question, when you look at the numbers the way he's looking at, I would like just to tell him that, first of all, when we are not the only country that is actually sending our policemen to Haiti, so many other countries are doing. Even though I sit at a place where I think that it's a difficult and delicate operation, what we need to do is to support our officers to go out there and do good work. Help Haiti gain its feet, because insecurity anywhere, instability anywhere is instability everywhere. Even though I have got a struggle to understand how then we actually are going to do that effectively and help that particular country. But let us support whatever international efforts are out there. Kenya should take lead. We now have come of age. We are not children, and we are not that selfish first regime that was in this country that didn't support other Africans. Black internationalism is a thing. It exists. And as much as we are nationalists and we're talking about local problems, we do not exist in a vacuum.
And we're almost less than
let me finish. I'll just say that the crime rate in Kenya has increased from 69,400, that's according to the National Police Service, to 81,000. So crime is going up. I will go to Haiti. 80% of Port-au-Prince.
Less than a minute, please.
Yeah, 80% of Port-au-Prince, which is the capital city, is controlled by gangs. So let's say there are 10,000 police officers for 11 million with 400 police stations, because I did some research. Now, the country is where 2,000 people were killed, and including them, there were 30 police officers. 1,000 girls and women were either raped or sexually assaulted. 190,000 fled. So we are going to a country that is, city is controlled by 80% gangs. Kenyan police officers cannot do much in Haiti. I'll tell you why. One, let me finish. They cannot first, they are not equipped to go and deal with foreigners. They could not even deal with their own people. Now this is what's going to happen.
There is a false equivalence.
No, let me, I didn't interrupt. So please, what I'm saying is this. Haiti is a place where gangs control majority of Port-au-Prince, 80%. Now, Kenyans who will go there must prepare for gasket to come back, because the United States refused to go there. More powerful than us, more equipped, more advanced in terms of even technological advancement. They could use drones to monitor what's happening on the ground, whether it is infrared or whatever. They are now sending us. But
they are going to undergo a training to be a specialized
You see, now I will still go back to the bad manners of Kenyan people. They will go there, and we will. And I want the editorial team to keep this video today, inshallah, if you are live. We will come back here and talk about the disaster the Kenyan police are going to face in Port-au-Prince. Because if Nairobi is 80% controlled by gangs, and then you bring foreigners,
all right,
then we will have a problem as a country. So
Zainab,
let us not rush
just a minute,
and say that the amount of money we are going to spend, 14 million, as my brother was alluding to, that is the money the leaders and those in power are going to steal.
All right, because of fairness,
Zainab,
let's have...
Just a point on this, because if we lose that, we are seated here, we are all not kinetics people, we are discussing a tactical decision. You see, how Port-au-Prince will actually be handled, whether you are doing a surge operation or you are doing a first line operation, is something not this table is actually capable to objectively discuss.
Al-Shabaab attacks continued after
and because
it's not the same.
Al-Shabaab and Port-au-Prince
are not the same. That is a false equivalence, totally false equivalence.
Right. We are actually right.
Yeah. It was easier to bring 1,000 Haiti young men to Kiganjo police,
train for them,
and Embakasi, we train them and send them back.
But so that's what you feel should have happened.
Send us even
it will take the 6 months.
We'll have to wait and see, and we'll have this discussion on another day, right?
Proposals are not looking at the people on the ground.
The guys who took us to Somalia in 2011, attacks have increased.
Thank you. Fanyamambo Kinuthia, lawyer, political analyst, Abdullah Last, policy and governance analyst, Arnold Maliba, public policy analyst. I think this issue of Haiti, I think we have to set aside a day so we can have discussion around that, and even have a security analyst as well can be able to give us more in-depth analysis on what they think is happening. But anyway, this is where we wind up on AM Live this morning. Thank you so much for staying with us. A lot of feedback on social media. Let's continue engaging. The hashtag is MLiveNTV, and you can X me at Zainab Ismail at NTV Kenya. I would love to hear your thoughts on some of those things that we've had a conversation around this morning, as well as in the papers. All right, Winnie Lubembe is coming up shortly on Your World. Stay tuned. Have yourself a good morning and good day, gentlemen.